Hey everybody, Mike Adams here, Stream Realty Partners. I am here with Corina Ocanto. Just as a quick reminder, this is the Stream Deep Dive. I'm coming from you from our Southern California office. I head up our Orange County office division. I personally have been with Stream for 15 years now, so I'm an OG. I head up our agency leasing team as well as sell some buildings, kind of in that middle markets from 5,000 feet to 50,000 feet. Really excited to have Corina here today. We are going to talk about all things workplace strategy. Corina is a VP within the company. She actually comes from Gensler. So for those of you that don't know, Gensler is the largest design and architecture firm, I believe, in the world. And Corina, some of her clients are the who's who of office occupiers. So Meta, US Soccer, HSBC. For those of you that are fast food fans, Chick-fil-A, among others. So we're really excited to have Corina here today.
Yeah. Hey, Mike. Make it sound
Hey,
so cool. You can
yeah,
give me all
no,
my resumes if you want.
hey, anytime. I'm here to be your biggest cheerleader, and that's what we'll do today. So this conversation kind of came by way of you and I. We were doing some training actually through Stream via LinkedIn, and it was about branding as well as storytelling. And it led to a conversation between you and me about, hey, listen, I think there's some misconceptions about what I do and what I do on a day in, day out basis. So maybe start off with that. Like, what exactly do you do within Stream? Because there's not you might be one of one within the organization that has the title and then has the roles.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you asked, and that was a good conversation because it does happen. So workplace strategy, I want to say it's kind of a newer role, and it is coming around more and more often. It's not quite designed, so what I don't do is I don't draw. I'm not a test fitter, I'm not an occupancy planner, but I do help clients think strategically about their workplaces, their people, and their space. And ideally, I'm consulting them or I'm working with them to implement some kind of change moment or a change program, or just to help understand and build a strategy around how their space impacts their people, which impacts their business. I think especially now, it's really easy to commoditize space. I know that's not a popular thing to say, but it's a little bit true, right? I have my whole work on my laptop and I can take my laptop anywhere. So, in order to not commoditize space, it's important to answer the question, what does this have to do with my business, right? How does my office make my business better? And that's the question that I'm here to help companies answer.
Got it. And I was getting ready for this conversation with you, and I was like, I basically rewinded the last 5 years. I'm thinking, okay, 2020 through 2025, we've seen just drastic and dramatic changes in workplace strategy, right? Like if you think to 2020, it was all about being safe, right? And like everybody was worried about being in the office. And all of a sudden, like remote work was just like everybody was offering it all the time. And then kind of fast forward to 2022, people were starting to re-enter the workplace, and then 2023, maybe like Instagram worthy offices, right? Like everybody really wanted that cool like Instagram worthy office, and then 2024, you've got, call it, a real push to getting back into the office. In 2025, it seems like there's like everybody's got metrics and data driven and KPIs, right? And I'd love to hear from you about like what are some of the metrics that you use on a day in day out basis to see if people are like operating efficiently in their office.
Yeah, you're totally right. It's a total change. I think before 2020, right, we were really measuring density more than anything else. I can't even think of too many clients that were using occupancy as a way to measure their space too much. I had a couple of clients who were thinking about a little bit of more flexible work, but that wasn't the norm. I think now there are so many interesting ways that companies can measure their space performance, and that is how they should be thinking about it. It definitely depends on the company, but things that folks should be measuring should definitely be use, right, and occupancy, not just for themselves and definitely not as a performance metric, but in order to understand vibrancy, which is a wonderful metric. Vibrancy is that feeling you get when you go into a space, whether it's an office or anywhere else, and it feels alive, right? It feels like there's a buzz and a crowd and something going on, not like a library, right? And definitely not like an empty office. Empty offices have very low vibrancy. And vibrancy is a threshold, right? If something is too full, if there's too much going on, it feels chaotic. That's not really vibrant, that's messy. And that often doesn't have the right kind of effect. But vibrancy could be like 70% of your occupancy, or it could be people in a particular kind of space. And that's the metric that actually drives the most attendance in my experience. Because when you have a vibrant office, people feel like they are connecting with other people, like they are participating in the brand, in the culture, et cetera, et cetera. And that makes people want to go. You can design the most beautiful space, but if it doesn't have vibrancy, it's never going to feel alive. It'll look beautiful, but it won't feel alive. And that doesn't drive attendance. So I think vibrancy is one that the exactness of it depends on the company and what they're aiming for, but it's a great one to define and a great one to measure. Other ones that I think are really interesting are measuring connectivity. So if you want to get really sophisticated about it, there's all this great new technology, all kinds of sensors that track not just which spaces are occupied, but also what activity they're doing in that space that can tell you, hey, we have an uptick in meetings, right? Or a particular kind of posture that indicates socializing in this area of our space, but not over here. And you can figure out why that's happening and then change accordingly if you need to, or if you're going to make a change, say, well, we want more of this kind of thing to be happening. Let's build more of this kind of space where we know through data that the activities we want are going on. I think that's an underestimated effect of a good workplace design, is that if you want people to collaborate more and you want them to have better quality meetings, those are things that you can measure. Space doesn't have to be a bad experience. It can be fun and it can be collaborative and it can foster connections, and those are things that you can measure as success factors of a space. And frankly, if your space isn't doing those things, it's not a bad time to ask, why do we have it? And what are we doing with it? And how could it be different?
So maybe here's a question I have for you. So let's say if your space isn't doing these kind of things, you're going to ask yourself, why do you have the space? Is there other possible scenarios, right? So if you ask yourself that question, like, hey, our space isn't vibrant and our space isn't checking these boxes, like what are the first three things that somebody should do in order to like go and maybe reimagine their space?
Yeah, that's exactly the right question, right? What do you need to do to reimagine your space? If your space isn't providing a positive experience, if it's not facilitating the activities that you want to be happening, that maybe, right, foster innovation or cross collaboration or a faster way of decision making, then you should ask yourself what your space is doing. Because the reality is that even with mandates, right, even with the uptick in mandates, even with the uptick in these return to office situations, actual attendance has been flat for the past 3 years. It's not going up. So purpose matters more than ever. Before 2020, we used to talk a lot about purpose in space because it was a really easy thing to gloss over. It was just like, I have an office. It does office, right? But I think since then, it's become an even more important question, right? Why? Why does it office? And what does that actually mean? Because you can't take it for granted because people won't go. So If it's not doing something purposeful, what what is the point of having it? That's not supposed to be some like dire question either, like what is it doing? There are lots of answers. I think actually it's the most exciting time because an office could be anything, right? It could be your event space, it could be your co-working space, it could be a playground for your employees. I don't know. But the fascinating part is that the box is bigger and more open than it's ever been.
Yeah, I find myself coming to the office because the team is there, right? Like you can go and like on the brokerage side, you can talk to marketing and hey, we need this with a brochure, or hey, we need this with a marketing campaign. You can talk to the teammates, hey, like we need to do this on this deal, we need to do this here, and the main reason I'm in the office is I've got a wife and a kid, right? And so like if I'm at home, they want my attention, so I spend as much time as I possibly can in the office because that means I'm focused and I'm detail oriented and I'm getting to the things that I need to get to. I got a question for you. This came up in actually in like our office relocation. So we relocated in December of last year, and we rolled out some different workplace initiatives. How do you overcome resistance from changes?
Yeah. Everyone always thinks their change is the most dramatic, and I can comfortably say all change is dramatic.
Sure. Yeah.
Relocation, I think, is always the one that just you feel it the most, right? Because it impacts everything in every individual's life. So it changes everyone's commutes, it changes their habits on their way to and from the office, their lunch habits, right? All of these things that you're not thinking about when you're planning an office. The key to change is time. Time and as much, not education, but like communication and adaptation, right? So a good way to handle change is not by doing nothing, right? Doing nothing leaves people to fill in the gaps for themselves. And not everyone is apt to change. So if you leave somebody who has trouble adapting to things on their own, they could feel overwhelmed, they could feel left on an island, they could feel left behind. So the best thing you can do is help them along, right? Everyone's going to adapt on the journey anyway. Asterisk. We'll come back to that. But overall, when I talk to clients about change, I always bring up the change curve, which is, you tell somebody who's happy with the status quo and the way things are, and then you tell them about a change, and their first reaction is, oh no, this is the worst thing that has ever happened to me. I can't believe this is going on. How will I ever get over this? And you let them say those things, you hear them out, you try to find opportunities where you can genuinely address their concerns. Usually there are good ideas from people in all of the chaos about what would make it better and how they could adapt in a way that's very manageable. You show them the things that they are getting and the positive change that is coming along and how much better it is than the negative change that's happening, and they come around. Sometimes it's through exposure, sometimes it's just by hearing them out. Different individuals need different kinds of attention, so it's important to inform people, hear them out, and get them involved as soon as possible. That kind of recipe leads people through this kind of valley of doom and out on the other side, where they say, actually, this is going to be fine. In fact, this might be better than what I had before. And ideally, that's where you catch people, right? Like, oh, I'm losing a thing that I was used to, but I'm gaining something that is so much better that I didn't even know I could have. That's how you make change palatable. But that takes time, right? You can't kind of skip the valley. You have to go through it.
Yeah, I would say, almost company wide. I think just from like a brokerage standpoint, Stream is known for having the open office environment, right? Oftentimes for brokers coming from other offices or other companies, just very challenging. The benefits obviously surpass the any kind of negative outcomes, but like getting those people in that situation, can be interesting at times, but like once they're in there and they see like the collaborative environment and how everybody's sharing resources and all the high fives and the energy and the environment and the collaboration. But it can be challenging and rocky sometimes on the front end. But
Absolutely.
so I was curious about how you kind of helped foster people through that.
We're going to go through the same thing now as well. Like we're in a small space that we outgrew very quickly, and we are packed in an open office that is not big enough for us anymore. And we're moving into this wonderful new space that's much bigger. It's got a really cool like cafe lounge at the front and spaces to hang out. We've built rooms for people to do individual things away from the open office that we don't have today. And I think it's going to be such a change for our day-to-day operations. And I can't wait to kind of see it come together. And we had the same conversations, right? We were like, this is our chance. If we want to put people in offices, let's do it now. And as a team, we decided we weren't going to do that, that it was worth some of that, sure, like kind of obvious discomfort of being in a room where sometimes it's really loud with everyone else, to be together and to share the resources and connect quicker and build relationships faster. And it does work. But you have to have somewhere to go.
So you are real time going through this process of a new office as we speak.
Oh yeah. It's not my first time doing it with my own company either. And honestly, anytime there's any change, everybody has questions, everybody has an opinion, and that's good. That's part of the reason that I got into Workplace, is because people care. And it is a big part of your life, right? You spend a lot of hours, well, at least before 2020, you used to spend a lot of hours in the office all of the time. So the effect of having a good office can change your life.
So what's the three things that you're the most excited about in your new office? The things that you think you shouldn't be able to live without?
I am excited about having everybody within like 10 feet of a window line. It seems like a small thing, but right now we only have a handful of people who like there's only enough room for a couple of people to sit near the windows. And some folks are sitting like 20 feet away from the windows facing the interior. And that's not good.
Yeah.
Right? You never see the sun. It's always behind you. And we've got a really nice view in Miami. Like we can see the river, we can see the ocean and the bay and the boats going by, but only if you're facing that direction.
Okay, so natural light is one.
Natural
What's
light
two
is
and
one,
three?
it's a big one. Two is having those individual rooms. So when we decided not to have offices, we put in a handful of offices for a day. So office shaped rooms with office type furniture, but they're unassigned. They're there for us to share. I will personally be coming after anybody who camps out in there for more than a day at a time. No personal belongings. It truly is a shared space, right? Because everybody sometimes needs a place to go.
Sure.
And then we've built in a couple of even smaller rooms that are meant to really accommodate people for maybe an hour or two when you need to like take a more private phone call, or you want to focus on something for shorter amounts of time. And we don't have that today. So what happens is when somebody needs to take that call, they need to take a full meeting room size space. So then a team doesn't have a room to go to. And so it's a real tug of war. And that's very normal. There's a lot of new research that shows the most used spaces in offices today are actually those small meeting rooms, that are only big enough for like 2 to 4 people to meet in, because that's the average number of people that go to a meeting. So why are we filling all these spaces with rooms for 10 or 12 or X amount of people? You need more of the smaller stuff for people to go away from the open office to take that stuff, which makes their experience better and it makes the open office experience better. And then the third one is like a great coffee machine.
And in your opinion, what's the best coffee machine? Like,
Oh,
are
man.
you a coffee snob?
I am a coffee snob. I gotta be honest.
Okay.
It's tough. Like if I had more time, I'd love to be a part-time barista at our office, and then I'd be up there making espressos for folks, but can't do that. So we're on the market for the right coffee machine that is the right level of management. I mean, I've got a little rabbit hole about this, which is for anybody designing coffee machines for offices out there. the milk function can be really tedious for mid-size offices and like small size offices because they just need a lot of maintenance. So if you want a coffee machine with milk functions, it's like a whole operational thing that you either have somebody who deals with that or you don't, and then your options are limited. But we're going to have some kind of wonderful coffee situation, and that'll be really fun. When you come into the space, we'll be sitting around there, sipping on coffees, catching up on stuff, coffee or beer or wine, depending on the time of day.
Wow, so you guys will have beer on tap?
We'll see.
Okay. You
It's all
might be
coming together live.
you
So
might be the most favorite stream office nationally if
ooh,
you've got beer on tap.
I'm setting the bar high.
Very high. What's the weirdest thing you've ever seen in an office?
Oh man, you've got no idea. Sometimes people will walk us through spaces like, whatever we're talking about something new, we have to understand what they have first. Not to recreate it, but sometimes like specifically not to recreate it by accident. So we've walked through some spaces that are something else. I've been to one of my clients works on theme parks and they switch teams a lot, right? Like they're working on different rides or different projects and things. And their office space where all these creative teams were kind of like mini themed lands in the office. And so every team just had all these like prototypes and crafts and toys and things that they had kind of from out of nowhere. So you turn the corner and it'd be all these like characters from one movie. And then you turn another corner and it'd be like a haunted house. So that's probably one of the most fun ones I've been in. I've also been in spaces where, I had a client take me to one of their furniture storage sites and it was in an underground cavern. To which my question was, do you really need this furniture?
I don't know. I guess my guess is the office company we were talking about earlier was probably Universal Studios, and I guess that could either be if you like animation and characters, that would be like probably the coolest job you could possibly get. If you don't like that, that could be a challenge and that could be a nightmare
Yes.
over and over and over again.
Yeah, it
Um,
definitely attracts some type of person.
yeah,
But it's great to see people express themselves like that. It's very, it reminds me of what it was like to be in architecture school, where you sort of had your space and within that desk, you could do whatever you wanted. And at the end of every semester, people's desks would just be filled with like models that they built, kind of one stacked on top of another. And the whole place looked like a model graveyard of like old projects and drawings that had been discarded or whose lives were over now.
so speaking of architecture school, so you took a different route, I would say, to get to Stream. Tell us a little bit how you ended up within the company.
Yeah, I studied architecture and went into design. I started doing research into the workplace at my grad program at UCLA, and that was like my first foray into the world of work. I'd never really thought about it before. And the research was really exciting. That's how I got to know Gensler as well. And when I went to Gensler, I started as an interior designer for Workplace and then got a chance to do some change management work for a client whose headquarters we were designing. And I knew right away, like, this is what I want to do. It was really like people forward work. And so I did that at Gensler for the better part of 8 years, had a great time, got to work with a lot of really awesome clients and a lot of really awesome teams. And then when the team down here in Florida started opening the Florida office, they realized they wanted somebody to talk about workplace, to help their office tenant clients make strategic decisions, not just reactive ones. And that's how I got brought in, was to bring that to the team. And we're really integrated in the way that we work, which is really fun. And I'm lucky that I get to ask the tough questions in our pitches sometimes.
Yeah. Do you work directly with the Florida team, or like can people call you on a national basis if somebody from the Nashville office has a question, or if somebody from our office has a question, how does that work? And like, can you be a resource with for other folks?
Yeah, I'm more
Asking
than
for a
happy
friend.
to. Yeah, I'm happy to be a resource for anyone. I've always worked nationally, and I have a lot of fun doing that. Um, while South Florida is a booming real estate market, we don't have a ton of headquarters here yet. So, inevitably, a lot of the more transformational work happens at headquarters, and that happens to be all over the place. So, I've done work everywhere from Florida, where I am, all the way to New York and Chicago and Houston and LA and San Francisco, Atlanta, anywhere in between. The other day, I got a call from somebody in Toronto, which was really cool. Um, so, yeah, I'm always available and happy to help. Always worked all over the country.
Yeah, and I mean, case in point, you and I mean, we just got on a phone like really quickly. You were really easy to get a hold of, and we started chatting, and one thing led to another, and we're here. Okay,
Yeah.
so brokers, everybody's got their favorite transaction, right? Like I know my favorite transaction inside and out. What is the project that you've worked on that's like, hey, that's the reason why I'm here. That's the reason why I do what I do. That was bar none the best client transaction, et cetera, that you've ever been involved in.
Do you know, I'm so bad at picking favorites. I have my one, like my transformational project was HSBC. I worked really close with their CRE team in a moment of like real transformation where they were moving their headquarters, and that was the thing that we were working around, but we got to touch so many other things. So we talked about employee experience, we piloted work. I mean, it took 3 years to go from an initial idea and understanding what could and couldn't be disrupted. We took a year to do a pilot study in person, on the ground, like built out a test space and measured it and tweaked with it and took the learnings and then applied it into the headquarter design and built out roles and helped, all 3,000 users of that space adapt to all the new things that were happening. Because it wasn't just a new headquarter, it was truly a new way of working that this headquarter was then supporting. And it was awesome. That was like the craziest, most fun 3 years that I got to be on with a client. But I think some of my favorite work that I end up doing is actually with mid-sized clients who aren't these big brand names and who don't have whole transformation teams. Often they're like family-owned companies who have just like outgrown their britches a little bit. They started off one way, very humble people, but they've grown, and now they're these multi-million dollar companies who have so much opportunity. And if you catch them at the right time, if you get the right people in, and leadership has a vision, there's a real opportunity there for transformation that ends up positively impacting not just the business and the financial profit outcomes, but also people, right? Employees can have a better experience, and when they go through that transformation and you see it happen, it's so rewarding and so much fun. Those are always the employees who give me the best quotes at the end of the day, right? They come out of these spaces and they're like, "Oh, wow. I didn't know that it could be like this. And I look forward to it being this way from now on," which is awesome.
Awesome.
You just raise the bar for a ton of people in a very real way.
Okay, and now to bring it back full circle, we'll talk about you personally. Outside of work, what is something that you do that people would never know about you?
It's like secretly linked in places, but when I'm not at work, I don't like to be online at all, and I'm a huge crafter. I love to crochet.
Wow, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, no, I love a yarn hobby. Some, like I play sports. I love tennis. I tried all those things, but I'm in Miami and it's warm, so none of the like wearable stuff worked. So I started making bags, and now I make like wine totes and little handbags and phone carriers.
Okay.
It's fun. And now, then, that's what everyone's getting for Christmas.
Crocheted cell phone carriers.
Absolutely, yes.
I love it. Awesome.
Yeah.
Funny story. So I've got two sisters, and they used to do that kind of stuff with my great grandma, and so I learned how to do it. It's loop, swoop, and pull, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Honestly, crafts. I made a pact with myself that in my 30s, I was just going to try all of the hobbies. Because I want to be like, later on, I want to be a person with hobbies. So I have to try the things, now and then get good at least a couple of them. That's how I got into crochet. But that's awesome. People should
Well,
try hobbies.
you could be like 90% of the real estate workforce and get into golf if you want to do what everybody does.
I'll play tennis.
There you go.
I'm good at racket sports. Golf is
Okay.
not. I don't have that much. I don't have that kind of range of motion. I don't know.
I've got a love-hate relationship with golf.
It's like what you have to do.
Yeah, 100%.